Hello everyone, this is Frank DeMore from the End Times Research Ministry. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is where I'm going to be connecting the dots to this very important information that I'm about to give to you. This information has to do with two of the wars that will be coming up shortly. And the Lord has given you the chance to see what's going to happen in the future before it actually happens. And if you only had His Word in your hands and to read what He said, I'm praying that if you had these words, you would believe it. Now, Matthew 16:3, the Lord told us, you know how to interpret the weather signs in the sky, but you don't know how to interpret the signs of the times. And that's how it is today. It was that way when He talked to the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they didn't understand. They had the signs of His first coming. They didn't understand it. And it's the same way today. But today, things are ratcheting up. The birth pangs are getting more intense. Let me connect some dots for you today. Very important news. We're dealing with 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3, where the Lord warns us about sudden destructions coming. What is that sudden destruction? My friends, it's war. That's what it is, and we don't have to guess because the Lord told us exactly where it was going to happen and who was going to be involved. First of all, take a look. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. So at the time that Israel's calling for this peace and safety, which they are, that would be the time where the sudden destruction was going to come. And it wouldn't be a surprise of where it was going to come from. It's not a surprise because we have it in our hands through the Bible. In the written word by God, who's given us the glimpse of the future before we even get there. The question is, will you believe it if you see it? I'm praying that you will. The sudden destruction that the Lord talks about deals with the nations surrounding Israel, and then later in another war. In the Ezekiel chapter 38 war, we see Russia getting involved. And today's news is very alarming because it shows the direction that the Lord showed us is being paved. The nations, they're going to be coming against Israel shortly from Psalm 83, that war. Who are they? Take a look. 1 to 10. All of these nations are going to attack Israel. We know that for sure. And the major player, Palestinian, as you see in number 8 with the arrow, who are they? Obviously, they are the PLO, the modern day PLO. They are in the Gaza Strip, as you can see here, and they have other names, the Hamas, the Fatah, and the Hezbollah. But they are coming to try to remove Israel from land that they believe that's their land. Let's take a look at Psalm 83 and what it really tells us. In verse 1, keep not thy silence, O God, and hold not thy peace. And be not still, O God, for lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and you're talking about Israel here, and consulted against thy hidden ones. And they have said, come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. In other words, destroy them completely. And for they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. So all of those nations that you saw in that photo, God said, they're coming together. They've already made the plan. And their plan is to wipe out Israel. Now I'm going to show you the allies of the PLO. And I'm going to get into the news today, which is extremely important. But I need to lay the ground, so to speak, or give you a clear picture the whole scenario, what's about to happen, because God has given us His signs. October the 26th, 2007, you'll see an article entitled, Attack Iran and You Attack Russia. Look at the yellow highlighted. A high-level diplomatic source in Tehran tells the Asian Times Online that essentially Putin and his supreme leader have agreed on a plan to nullify the George W. Bush administration's relentless drive towards launching a preemptive attack, perhaps a tactical nuclear strike against Iran. Notice the red arrow. An American attack on Iran will be viewed by Moscow as an attack on Russia. This isn't the only warning that Russia has given. There's others. Let me show you. This article came out in January 19th of 2008. Russia may use nukes if threatened. It says, we have no plans to attack anyone, but we consider it necessary for all our partners in the world community to clearly understand that to defend the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Russia, now get this, and its allies, because this is going to be important, military force will be used, preemptively including the use of nuclear weapons. Now, just to let you understand what's going on here, in Ezekiel chapter 38, we are told that the Russians are going to form a massive army. They're going to bring these Islamic states down against Israel to try to wipe out Israel, and this war happens after the Psalm 83 war. You'll see that Persia, the Old Testament name, the modern day people of Iran, are going to be included in this. And for the other nations, go to my website, read the book. It'll tell you every single one of these people who are coming. You will see the agreements, the military agreements, and the economic agreements, the military ties and the economic ties, forging every one of these nations together to come against Israel in the last days. Now, you saw the names of the people mentioned in Psalm 83. You saw the people that are named in Ezekiel chapter 38. I'm going to concentrate on the Palestinians, and I'm going to concentrate on the Russians, because there are two major influences that are going to be, they're going to try to affect Israel, but all of their efforts will be to naught, because God is in control, and He is the one who's going to come on these people in the last days and make sure that it is Israel who is still standing. Look at this article that came out January 24th of 2014. This is today's news. The Palestinian leader turns to Putin. Look at this. Turns to Putin for Palestinian state. Dumps U.S. and Israel as peace partners. Keep in mind Paul's statement.
Yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that that day should overtake you as a thief.
When they shall call, peace and safety, sudden destruction comes. And here you have the very people who the Lord shows us they're going to come against Israel. They abandoned the peace process, and now they're forging together. Is this a coincidence? Not at all. The Palestinian Authority Chairman Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Mazen, launched his diplomatic intifada against Israel, an exit from the Kerry Peace Initiative Thursday, January 23rd from Moscow. His meeting with President Vladimir Putin and the Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev marked his breakaway from the U.S.-led peace process with Israel 4 months before it was due to expire, and signaled his bid for the Russian backing for a Palestinian state. How is the Palestinians going to get a state? Well, the Palestinians want a state inside Israel's territory. They want East Jerusalem as the capital. Are the Russians going to try to give it to them? You better believe it. And if the Palestinians attack, and we know from the Psalm 83 that the Palestinians are not going to win, and if Russia sees the Palestinians lose, if they've already warned that they were going to come to their aid of the Allies, you can count on That next set of circumstances be in Ezekiel chapter 38 when the Russians lead that war. Now, the Palestinian leaders' defection caught both Secretary of State John Kerry and Prime Minister Benjamin unprepared and surprised their intelligence agencies. Putin and Abbas almost certainly planned in advance to drop their bombshell on the day both Kerry and Netanyahu were otherwise engaged at two international events in Switzerland, Geneva, two on Syria and the World Economic Forum. Now, for the Russian leader, it was a chance to show the international community, the Obama administration, that he was several steps ahead of the game on the three hottest Middle East issues. Now, look where these issues are and who they're talking about. Iran's nuclear program. Who do you think's building the nuclear program? It's the scientists that are coming from Russia. What money do you think is building it? It's coming from Russia. You'll see all these documentations in my book. Now, moving on. The Syrian civil conflict and the Palestinian bid for statehood. The first intimation that something big was to come up from the TARS Task Agency report Thursday that Abbas and Metov were due to sign an intergovernmental agreement for a $1 billion natural gas project in the Gaza section of the Mediterranean Sea. Russia's natural gas giant Gazprom hoped to produce 30 billion cubic meters of natural gas at the site. And when we're talking about gas, many believe that the Third World War will start over gas. Israel has discovered major finds of gas and oil in the last 2 years. They're becoming a major player in the Middle East. Russia wants to remain the major player. So you see the footwork being laid down for the next war. The report added that Russia's Technoprom export engineering firm was also considering a small oil development project near the West Bank city of Ramallah. The West Bank, who wants that back? Syria. Who really owns this land? Israel. You think Israel's going to give this territory up? Never. It's just going to cause conflict. So West Bank city of Ramallah, the hub of the Palestinian Authority government headed by Abbas. Palestinian leader began his conversation with Putin by calling a Russian great power that deserved to play a more prominent role in the volatile Middle East region. Clearly taken aback by the news coming in fast from Russia, Israeli official sources said Thursday night that they could not understand how the Russians and the Palestinians came to agreement on the Mediterranean waters off the shores of Gaza. Keep in mind, the Gaza Strip actually belongs to the Israeli. And when the rights were already owned by British gas, it did not occur to them that the deal Russia proposed to sign with the Palestinians was designed to be an extension of the Russian-Syrian oil exploration contract signed on December 27th in Moscow. Again, leading to a major war coming over gas and oil. This move confronts Israel with two troubling concerns. Look at this. Number one, the Russian interest could potentially encircle Israel's offshore Mediterranean gas and oil sites, and Russia pipelines may block Israel's export facilities. If they ever did this, it would be war. And number two, under international law, the Palestinian Authority is not recognized as an independent state and is therefore not empowered to establish a special economic zones in the Mediterranean as closed areas for prospecting for oil or gas. This was one of the topics based on the agenda of the peace talks led by John Kerry. However, Moscow has highly handily circumvented this obstruction by taking charge offshore exploration opposite Gaza, and therefore we're offering independent national entity authorized to sign international contracts. This could be the precedent for a process, now get this, creeping Palestinian statehood without engaging Israel in negotiations. In other words, the Russians want to make the Palestine a state. Where would that state be? Inside Israel. Israel will never let that happen. It would be war. And if the Palestinians ever tried to move into the Israeli territory, Israel would swoop down on them. They would defeat the enemies like they did in 1948, 67, and 1973. And in that case, when Russia saw their allies being defeated, they would make a move later, and you would see the Ezekiel chapter 38 war. Now, Moscow has already proved it can get away with busting international sanctions by concluding a $1.5 billion contract with Iran for the purchase of 500,000 barrels of Iran oil a day without incurring a word of complaint from Washington. So the power of Washington declining at the same time that the power of the Russians are advancing. Why do you think this is happening? Because we're getting ready to see the rest of the prophecies fulfilled. Now, 2 weeks later, Putin and Abbas have acted together to wreck the painstaking U.S. diplomatic incentive actively partnered by Israel for a negotiated peace accord with the Palestinians. And they left John Kerry and Benjamin Netanyahu holding an empty shell. Nabil Shalev, the Palestinian Fatah veteran, could not have put the situation more bluntly when he said Thursday night that it was time to end the American monopoly on peacemaking. And after Washington had proved incapable of imposing agreements on Israel. Now I put this and highlighted because I want you to see this. It said imposing. What does this mean? Forcing Israel into it. How would they force them? By some kind of war? According to Ezekiel and according to Psalm 83, that's what we're looking at. Now the Russian tactics for Syria and Iran have proved effective, he said, and there was no reason why Moscow could not perform the same function on the Israeli-Palestinian track. The Palestinians have clearly opted to follow the examples of the other Middle East leaders ranging from Iran's Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has, by the way, called for the destruction of the nation of Israel, to Syria's Bashar al-Assad, who, in my book, you will find the documentation said we will take over Israel, whether it will be for peace or by war, and Saudi King Abdullah and the Egyptian strongman Abdul Fattah al-Sisi, in making tracks overtly or covertly to Moscow. And they are opening the door for Russia to fulfill the void left by American disengagement from region under the Obama administration. There is definitely shifts coming. The coming shift is bringing Psalm 83 war, Ezekiel chapter 38 war. If you just found my YouTube channel and you don't know anything about the Psalm 83 war and you know nothing about the Ezekiel chapter 30 war, please go to my book and you will learn about both those wars and what's going to happen. You will find out the specific details. The Lord didn't leave anything out for us. Go to my website. You'll see a link just like this. Click to the link. You can download my book today for free. It would be a great day for you to give your life over to Jesus. Time is short. We're seeing these events coming quicker and quicker. And we know why, because the Lord told us in Mark 13:8 that the last days were going to be likened to birth pangs. And these birth pangs are retching up. God bless you.